Hello, my name is Tiara, and I will be going over and discussing the topics I learned about this week through my readings from chapters 8 through 15 and then chapters 3. I will discuss the chapters generally and provide an understanding of the concepts and theories, and then I'll also provide some life experiences and experiences with the subject in my career. So here I'll talk about chapters 8 through 11 and some of the things that stood out to me. So on chapter 11, it talks about ecological perspectives. What stood out to me and what I understood was the child will start to see how others behave and react towards them, and vice versa, how they react towards others. This obviously, to me, contributes to their self-esteem, perspective, and perception of themselves and kind of where they fit in this world. And a real life example for me would be I'm a social worker, so I help families get cash assistance, or if they need food stamps, or if they need medical assistance. And I see this a lot where the poverty is almost inherited. And the children who are in these families, I hear them very young speaking about when they need the same type of assistance their parents need to survive, if that kind of makes sense. It's like generational poverty. And it is sad to hear children already talking and setting themselves up for poverty and knowing the motions of it. Which kind of goes into chapter 9, which is physical environment. They talk about crowding, chaos. There have been studies that show that children between the ages of 3 to 8 in crowded conditions are more aggressive and less social than their peers. Chapter 10 talks about conflicts of war and famine. I don't have any personal real life experience with this other than what you see within the world, which is unfortunate. We do face war and famine in this world. If you turn on the news, you can hear about it. But this naturally impacts a child's mental health, and the kid even experienced physical injury, which naturally impact their trust and their stability and their trust within their environment. Chapter 11 talks about impact of climate crisis on a child's social development. This topic also could be applied to the families I work with. Again, going back to the examples of, I hear very young children talking about how to get on assistance. To me, it just kind of, I don't know if it's the parent or the child, or, the parents focusing on their survival right now, where they're not thinking about the future of the child, which I get that part. But it just saddens me to hear children talking about things of poverty. So this slide is chapters 12 through 15, and then chapter 3. Chapter 12 talks about COVID-19 and how it impacted childhood development. Naturally, with the social isolation and social distancing, it impacted children's development socially, especially when it got severe enough that in most schools went homeschool or online. I know that was a really tough time. Chapter 13 talks about culture and children's social development and how culture impacts it. I think this is pretty natural, and again, I could apply this to a lot of the families I work with. There are certain cultural aspects that I have to take into consideration when trying to help the families. Where I live, we're in a rural community, so that's something that I definitely have to take into account a lot. Chapter 15 talks about theoretical and empirical findings, and just about how physical development, cognitive development, emotional, and speech and language developments, all of these naturally impact childhood, and in fact are checked to make sure the child is developing appropriately by a lot of these things. So I understand how important that is through readings this week. And then chapter 3 was infancy and toddlerhood. and just about how the nutrition of the infant and things of that nature impacts development, which is natural. And that's something also I teach to a lot of my clients. So things like safe sleep, what's a nutritional balanced meal, and the best way to go about feeding their child for the maximum development.